Hello, everybody. This is Matthew Tompkins, episode 9, Day and Night Podcast. Marcus is always down in San Antonio.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, beautiful people. Again, I want to say thank everyone that viewed, thank those that actually did comment. So, again, please like, subscribe, and comment if you feel as though you have something you want to say, even if it's just an emoji. Anything is better than nothing at all. All right, so like I said, this is episode 9. I'm just going to jump right into it with no hesitation, and I'm going to share something with you all. So, episode 9 is going to be about is LGBTQ an agenda?
In a world of envy, analyze as these guys looks to see. They clones to the naked eye, the dynamic dude. No pesticides, they organic. Day and nights the podcast. In panoramic in 4K, live streaming on your airwaves. No cliche to downplay, this ain't no child's play. Twin brothers, close knit bonding. They wonders of the world, they monsters. The twin Tompkins, brought on only born. They travel the world stomping at the break of dawn daily. The iron's pumping, my brain no brothers, about to bring you their life. Look no further, everybody, cause it's day and night.
So, just to start off, I want you all to view this right here. So, based off statistics, the LGBTQ has approximately 4.3% of adults in the United States identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or queer. That means that there are more than 10.7 million LGBTQ adults in the United States. Okay, according to Romeo 2017, the Gallup poll. Now, these numbers may be increased because that's what 4 or 5 years ago. But as of 2017, based on this census reporting, this is the amount of LGBTQ adults in the United States. This is not including children. So that number is probably a little bit more inflated than what it is. But this is just something to have to give some context as I said, there's an LGBTQ an agenda. So transgender, based off of the Institute report, from Williams Institute report, estimates that 1.4 million adults, which is basically 0.6% of all adults in the United States, identify as transgender. And then bisexual is half of the LGBTQ population identify as bisexual. So that's what I want to start off on. So to me, that number is really, really, really small compared to 363 million adults or Americans in the United States. So when you're looking at the macro view of it, that's a real, real small portion of the population. So in my opinion, it's I don't get why it's so much effort being put into LGBTQ community. Now, we'll talk about it later, but as far as how it came about, I get that part, you know. But as far as how it's in movies now, it's in commercials, everywhere you look, there's either a transgender or it's homosexual, bisexual. They have couples, they put in their movies, they put in cartoons, it's in music, it's everywhere you look. And to me, that's not that significant of a number to have to push all that down people's throats, in my opinion. That's just an awful lot for that small portion of the United States. So that's why I believe as though it's an agenda, because again, the amount of people that's actually identified as that is a small portion. Now, does that mean that they shouldn't have a right to be and practice what they want to practice? No, that's not what I'm saying. But just as though they feel as though it's their First Amendment, freedom of impression or expression, then it's the same thing for us as far as heterosexual. So this is where I kind of lose the fight with them. is that's basically your choice as far as what you do behind closed doors. So whatever your sexual preference is, why should we have to be forced to accept that? What you do behind closed doors should be your business. And that's what I have issues with. It's like we're being forced to accept what you do behind closed doors. And I believe myself and everybody else, that's the biggest issue. Now, if you want to be gay or whatever the case is, transgender, then do that. But when you're forcing it and making other people have to accept it to where, as I said, that they're putting it in TV shows and movies and commercials and stuff like that, that's a little bit too much. Now, when people cross the line, when they actually, bullying people, some people actually lost their lives over it. Now, that's taken it to another extreme. But in my opinion, some of these people that's doing this are the ones that feel as though that they're being forced to accept something. Some are religious radicals, and some just hate. They just have hate in their heart, and so they just want to just take it out on whoever. But at the same time, just as though we have to respect your freedom of expression, the same thing should be given to those that don't see that as, normal or, whatever the case is. So, and as I said, we'll get into it later, but the Supreme Court case that actually came about was back in, I think, 1998. And this is what blew my mind, and I'll have the slide later. As far as, it was actually a school teacher. She was talking to her class about her partner. Now, I'm sitting there thinking, why the hell are you talking to your class about your sexual preference? Whether if you're talking about what's going on behind doors or if you're talking about who you dating, that has nothing to do with classroom instruction. So what happened was the school tried to ban her, and she said that they was going against her First Amendment right. And so, of course, it went to the courts and then went to the Supreme Court, and they ruled that she was her First Amendment right was violated. So that's how the whole the battle against freedom of expression and gays not being able to express who they are was that case. That was one of them. It was many, but that was one of the first ones that kick-started that whole movement. So again, it was kind of like the Roe versus Wade. It was one particular person that didn't like something, and they took it, ran with it, and here we are. So I'm kind of have mixed feelings on that because, again, like I said, why are you talking to your class about what you do behind closed doors?
Right.
And I think that's what a lot of them don't get is that, again, no one cares what you do behind closed doors, but it's like you're pushing and you're making it that much bigger, and it's like you're advertising it. Now, if you're walking and about, in public and you're doing whatever you're doing, hugging and kissing, again, that's your business. But I feel as though that they're pushing it onto everybody and trying to make everybody feel as though, well, who we are and what we do is just as good and not as bad as what you're doing. So that's just the first take on how I feel about it. So I'm going to, kick it over to you and see what you got to say about it.
Well, yeah, this is a lot to say. So like you said, I'm gonna try to take it slow and dissect it. But I piggyback on everything you just said. You said promote it is what I'm gonna say. I think it's more, you said push. I was trying to remember the word you said. You said they try to push it on you. Yeah. I'm gonna be pretty much parallel what you're saying. Is to me personally, it seems like they promoting it. Like they're trying to get people to feel that's up on the fence, that it's okay to be that way. Like you said, I'm not against it. To each his own. Me personally, I don't agree with it. I don't get it, but everybody have their own way of doing things. But to me, it feels as if they're trying to promote it because, again, if somebody's somewhat remote curious, you got them saying, well, look, it's okay to be that way. You should do it. Like you said, it's on commercials now. Cartoons even do it. They even have kids on shows where they feel like it's okay to do that. And I get what they're trying to promote is saying that if you feel that way, it's okay to be yourself and don't be embarrassed or ashamed of it, which I understand that. But when you at a young age, to me, I feel like they trying to make and promote them to steer that way, where they probably more or less just experiment, but they trying to lure them into saying, well, hey, you this way because it's okay to be that way, so just go ahead and do it. Instead of trying to say, look, you're just young, you probably experiment, you don't really know what you want, because years from now, you may decide that you are a heterosexual.
Right.
So on that note, I just don't, that's what I'm saying. I don't agree with it. I don't like the way they put it on movies and TV shows, and it's just too free. I get it again, as far as equal rights. Like you said, they trying to practice the First Amendment. But to me, it's the arrogance at this point.
Right.
Where they're like, look, this is who we are. You're going to accept us. And if you don't, that's shame on you. But it's like, okay, if heterosexuals do that, it's not okay. They say you're trying to force the issue to be straight instead of letting them be curious. So why is it okay for LGBTQ to do the same thing? And it seems like you can't even say anything without it being offensive or you're disrespecting them. Again, that's a personal opinion. We should be able to voice our opinion if that's what it is. Now, like you said, if they go out and be violent towards somebody, that's going to another level. But I should be able to say, I don't agree with it. I don't like that without being ridiculed. Well, what's wrong with you? But there's nothing wrong with them two sex liking each other. I'm like, it's just a comment and it's just an opinion. I'm not saying that it should be against the law, but it seems like whenever you comment on it, you get bashed for it. What's his name just got, what was it, last year? The comedian, he got in trouble for it.
Oh, Dave Chappelle?
Dave Chappelle. And he was more talking about transgenders because he's saying how he just always joked about it. But it's comedy. And they tried to boycott his show. They actually made him stop the show that day.
Right.
Because he said something, and it was somebody in the stadium, in the stands, that got offended. And I just feel like really it's to the point where we can't even speak on our minds as straight individuals, heterosexuals, to say we don't agree with or disagree with it. So I think that's where it's getting too far, is where they trying to put a lid on how we feel about it, instead of just saying, look, it's one person's opinion, nobody has to accept it. Just like myself, I date out my race. If somebody say they don't like it, I can't get mad at them. That's their own personal opinion. I'm not going to run and be like, oh, they disrespected me and they against me. No, that's your opinion. You get over it and I move on. But for some reason, when it comes to that situation, again, it seems like it's a sin. It's against the law to speak on it. You can't say anything about it without it being offensive or disrespecting the community of LGBTQT.
Right.
Q. I just mess it up, y'all. Sorry. So I'm gonna use a couple examples, Matt, then I'm gonna let you go back and chime in. Now, it's at work. And this is what I mean about arrogance. One of our supervisors, and I didn't know this until one of the coworkers told me. He's a guy and he's real flamboyant. And I didn't know because I don't assume, but I was like, this dude seemed a little extra. But he was running down the aisles and being, acting very feminine. Right. But I just said, maybe he's just one of them guys that's kind of feminine. But then one day he came up and made a comment to me, and it was a little bit, if it was me talking to a girl, I'll get fired for that because that's considered sexual harassment. But when he said it, I just looked and just blew it off. And then the girl walked up and said, no, because we deal with pipes. I'm going to just say what he said. He said, that's a big, long pipe you got right there. No, I just blew it off like, yeah, he's just talking, that's just who he is. And then the girl walks up and says, he likes men, right? I said, what, really? She said, yeah, he's gay. I said, oh, so he's trying to make a sexual comment? She said, yeah, but you didn't know that about him because nobody never told you. So I'm like, wow, now every time he says something, the first thing that pops in my mind is this dude trying to flirt with me? Is he making sexual advances? Because he always make a little sly little comments.
Right.
But I was like, that ain't cool. He shouldn't be talking to me like that. That ain't right. So the girl jumped in his defense. Oh, why you gonna be a hater like that? You shouldn't be mean just because he like men. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm like, I didn't say nothing wrong with it. But if I was to do that to you, and you go to HR, they'll look at that as sexual harassment. Exactly. But when somebody say that about the same sex doing that, oh, it's okay. Why are you getting offensive? And he ain't doing nothing wrong. So my point on what I'm trying to make is, again, it seems like every defense is for the gay community now. You can't say anything. You can't even be against it because you're wrong now. It seems like the way it feels, in my opinion, where you say any comment, you're in the wrong for saying something, even if it's the other person that was wrong in the situation. So that's just a little bit. So I'm gonna jump it back on you, and I'm gonna come back with another scenario at work.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that happens at that job. But yeah, I'm gonna let you say something, and I'm gonna come back.
All right, so you might think I'm stuck on this number, but to me, it's significant.
Yeah.
I don't know if people can actually just sit there for a minute, just let that number marinate for a minute. 363 million to 10 million.
Right.
That's not even like maybe one city. I think New York City has more people than that than the total population. So just as you said, it seems as though you can't say anything. Like people are getting what is it called? Canceled. Celebrities or entertainers. People can't speak on this subject without getting trouble based on a small percentage. 4.3% of the population. But it's making that much noise. In my opinion, that's why it's alarming to me, because the amount is so small, but the impact is so significant. Now, if it was like 60, 70% of the population of the United States, then I say, yeah, you have to, because almost the majority of the population is the LGBTQ community. But because it's such a small portion, why is it being held with so much impact? And that's where I come in with this, an agenda. And just as you were saying, like, everything is being filtered in. Like, just the movie I saw not too long ago, every movie now, there's one gay dude in there. And just always happen to be a black dude. That's another, subject for another day. But they just putting it in there. And that's why I feel as though it's subliminal messaging. They're putting it out there. Like you said, they're dangling, saying it's okay to be that. It's nothing wrong with it. So they're putting in the minds of people that it's okay to be that way. Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Now, this is where I'm on the fence at. And I was actually thinking about this the other day. I'd say I kind of had an epiphany. So I was just thinking as I was doing research on this, and I was like, you know what? This kind of goes back into the masculine versus femininity podcast we had. They are so much similar. And the reason why I say that is because, and I had a conversation with a friend the other day about this. Like, feminine energy and masculine energy, it's exactly what it is. It's energy. It's just that we, as humans, we choose to identify those traits with gender. So because we do that, we automatically see femininity is only supposed to be in a woman and masculinity is supposed to be in a man. And that's not the case. We both, like I said then, men have masculine and feminine energy, and women have masculine and feminine energy. So that's why I wish Deanna was on here. So my whole thing with this is, like, I don't have nothing against it. Before I was opposed to it. But just based off of the energies, as far as a couple that's supposed to unite to be together, most people see it as man and a woman. Masculine and feminine energy. But this is my question to you and the viewers out there. Why does it matter if that feminine or that masculine energy is coming from another woman? Because again, women possess masculine energy. So if that woman possesses and she's more masculine dominated than she is feminine, then that's where the stem or stud comes in. That's why sometimes you see a lot of women with the other woman that's acting like a dude, because she's taking on the masculine energy of a man. So she's replacing the energy from a man. So if you look at it from just that point, that perspective, there's nothing wrong with it. Again, because as humans, we identify that you have to be with a man. I mean, it has to be a man and a woman. But it's the energies is what's connecting each other together. So if a woman possesses masculine energy for that woman, and she fall in love with her, and she's providing her what she needs based off of those two things, then there's nothing wrong with that. And vice versa. If a man falls in love with another man that possesses more feminine energy, and he has the more masculine energy, again, that's balanced because the two energies come together and they unite. So for me, if you look at it from that perspective, then it shouldn't be an issue because you're looking at it solely from masculine and feminine energy connecting and becoming one. But because society says that it's supposed to be a man and a woman, that's where people have issues with it. And then, of course, the religious community is always going to say, well, that's not what Jesus intended. That's not what God wanted. This is how God created it. But he created us with masculine and feminine energy for a reason. Right. So that's what I looked at. I was like, from that perspective, I got it. Just clicked. I said, you know what? I can't fight against that. Because when I look at it from that perspective, as two energies is matching. Now, if they're balanced, then that's more, to me, in my opinion, that's more of a choice. Because if you have a woman that has masculine and feminine energy that's balanced, that has androgyny, and you have a man that has the same thing, but you choose to be with the woman instead, then I can see somebody like, okay, what's up? They both provide the same thing. So why do you choose a woman? I mean, it's just still their preference, but I can see why that could be an issue. Yeah. But my whole standpoint or point, what I'm trying to make is, when you look at it from energy, I get it. Okay. Now going back to the other thing you talked about, when you said you feel as though that, did you didn't say push? You said
promote.
Promote, yeah.
Promote it more.
Now. The thing that I look at too is, like you said, the dude that had feminine. He was very flamboyant.
Right.
That's the other thing that I look at too. And again, if you choose to go that route, I shouldn't even know about it. But for me, the issue is when you know 100% there's a dude that you know that don't go that way, and you still try to push up on him, and you still try to pull him in, then that's when it becomes an issue. That's when you're crossing the line. If you have your LGBTQ community, then stay in that community. But the other issue comes in when you have people that intermix with it and play back and forth, the ones they call undercover or whatever. Yeah. So if they're messing with these people, then they think everybody's like that. Still wrong, but then that's when the issue comes in. So I'm like you. I feel the same way. Like, I just feel as though they're too arrogant and they're too aggressive. Mm-hmm. And I just can't get that out of my head. Why do you feel as though you have to promote it? That's like me saying I like to lick toe jam, and I go out in the street and tell people, hey man, I lick toe jam. It tastes good. And they get mad. But you nasty mother, what you doing eating toe jam? That's nasty as hell. And I get pissed off because he's coming back at me because I said I lick toe jam. Right. So, but then I can run back and say, well, the First Amendment says I have freedom of expression. That's the issue that a lot of them are riding, is that freedom of expression. And again, which is good and it's okay. But when you're making it to whereas you have to accept it and there have to be laws, right? That's crossing the line. Now, when it gets into the marriage, which actually took place in 2015, was legally to get married to the same sex. Yeah. That's a different level because that goes back to what I was saying about, the two energies matching up or whatever. All right.
Wow, that's a lot. I agree with a lot of stuff you said. I'm gonna try to rewind to what you were saying from the jump. Now, the energy thing, I get what you're saying. I believe in that 100. But here's the thing.
You ain't feeling it, huh?
No, I'm feeling it because it makes a lot of sense. The way you broke it down is like you make sense, and it defines why a lot of sexes are starting to gravitate towards each other. But here's where I agree, but I disagree, because I know what you were saying about the religion part, where you were saying that some church goers say, well, God didn't mean for it to be. That's where I'm gonna piggyback and say, well, if that's the case, if it's two energies that's matching each other, there has to be a reason why it's man and woman, because we have to be able to procreate, reproduce. Right. Can't reproduce with the same sex. So that's where I have to stop and say, it's the reason why there's a man and there's a woman. It's not so much the feminine and the masculinity plays a big part, right? Right. But I believe the reason why it falls back to why it has to be a man and a woman is because if you want kids, you have to have that man, because you cannot produce with the same sex. Now, some people gonna come back with the, well, they can get physically assimilated now.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
It still comes from a male, though. See, that's
right. I get what you're saying. To reproduce, you have to have a male.
Yeah, to reproduce. So that's where I think that it's the reason why it's a man and a woman. So we can continue to live as a human race. Because if you get everybody the same sex, then you're gonna be able to reproduce.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's kind of where the line has to be drawn. Then the other example that I'm gonna comment on what you were saying as far as the masculinity versus feminine. Women that wants that woman that has that masculinity of a man. That makes a whole lot of sense. I get it. But this is why I ask women that has another girlfriend. And I ask them, and I get in their business. I said, do y'all do penetration? And she says, yes. I said, so that tells me, regardless what y'all doing in the bedroom, at some point you need that penetration.
You still need that D.
So you can still get each other off to have an orgasm, which we all know, heterosexual or same sex.
Right.
But most women that I talk to that's gay said, yeah, at some point they use penetration. So that tells me again, that's why the male has to be in the picture. Now, I get some women goes through a lot. They get hurt by a lot of men. Now, we need to do a part 2 where we have Deanna.
Oh, it is. It's going to be a part 2.
So they can speak on it. Because right now I'm speaking out of something I can't really be concrete because I haven't experienced it. I'm only on opinion.
Right.
Some women lose faith in guys because they get dogged out by them, cheated on, beat up, so they feel like, you know what, I need to turn myself to a woman because a woman will understand me more and have that masculinity and the feminine. So it feels like, why shouldn't I be with a woman? She loves me and appreciates me, and I'm attracted to her. So this is where I feel that's why I see more women being with women. So it's going to be kind of contradiction saying that it's okay for women to like women, but for men, I'm just having a hard time understanding that. I understand the feminine part if a guy wants to be feminine, but on the physicality of it is where I'm confused. Women is the most beautiful thing in the world. So, and I tell women this all the time when I'm training women, and they go, what kind of women do you like? And they up and down swear that I like a woman that has muscles like me.
Right.
Now, that's what I tell everybody. I respect women that goes in the competition, that competes, but I say if she has muscles as much as me or more, it's a turnoff. Because I don't want to feel a hard body with another hard body. Again, to each his own. Everybody have their own preference. But to me, that's where as a guy, I can't be at another guy and be feeling on muscles and be attracted to it. But again, to each his own. But to me, my question is, why is it more not accepted, why is it more turning towards that now as opposed to maybe 20 years ago? And a friend of mine told me maybe it's been like that if we just haven't experienced it, because back then it was so taboo, it was not accepted, so it was so many in the closet. So I said, so now you're saying because it's more socially accepted, more people are coming out saying this is how I am? My question is, why is the number, like you said, is very minute compared to the overall population? And I guess because it's so blown out, it feels like it's a whole lot of people. But everywhere I turn, it seems like it's a couple or it's a guy that likes another guy. And my thing is, if that's what you want, that's fine. I guess it's a curiosity. What turned you that way? Was it something you felt like you always curious about when you was little? Or is it something you just, as you got older, you just decided to go down that route? Because my friend and I had a comment. She believes that it's genetically, you can be born that way. And we got into a big debate, and I said, I don't think it's so much you can be born. I think at some extent, yes. Maybe you had the numbers of research on that, but we need to look into that. My thing is on that, it's more of a choice because, and I use the example of Deanna and her mom. Deanna grew up with her mom liking women.
Right.
She got married to a woman. So she was young. Her mom never enforced it, promoted it, told her, well, you should be a woman because women's like this, or they better. She never did that. I always say you're a product of what you are around. Your subconscious mind sees it So you views it as it's okay, and you might even think it's cool. So now your curiosity just got heightened even more because somebody in the household is doing it, and you might have a little feel like maybe I'm like that. And as you get older, because society says it's okay now, because this is where we at. Everything's accepted nowadays. Just don't judge me. I am who I am, and I think that plays a part too. Is because it's so accepted. So I feel like people that's on the fence, it's easy for them to convert over now because it's accepted. So I think it's more, what I'm trying to say, of an irrational decision. And then as you get older, you might change your mind. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna jump it back on you. Is the comment I made to my friend is if you're 15, you mean to tell me you know you're gonna be like that when you're 45? And I tell Deanna, I said, hey, if you know you like women, that's fine. But then I asked her, are you gay? Meaning, can you be in a full-blown relationship just like a heterosexual and live with that person for the rest of your life? And she said, yeah, I can see myself like that. But if you have reasonable doubt, that's when I feel like it's more of a curiosity. It's a fad you're going through. And maybe you want to go in that direction because you think it's right and it's cool. But a relationship is hard, even for the same sex, or even harder. So that's why I tell people, are you sure that's what you want? Because a relationship is different from just having sex with another same sex and you just enjoying it. Or do you want to be in a relationship with that person?
Okay, so can you see the slide I just brought up?
Yeah, but it's the one that we started off with.
Okay, so to answer your question and go back to what you was talking about, that's 100%. I know some people say it's gene related. In some instances, scientists have a theory about it. Haven't been 100% proven, but it is a theory out there. So basically what I have up is a slide, and it has a dial. So basically it's called gender schematic. So when we all were children, rather 2, 3, 4 years old, at some point we learned what gender identity was. So some children, whether if it's at home or at school, they're introduced as far as what a man or a boy is supposed to do and what a girl is supposed to do. So that's how gender identity came about. So on this slide, it has a dial and it has, am I thinking about gender? Now, this is the mind of a child. So it's called gender salience filter. So if you say yes, and it's a boy, am I thinking about gender? The boy says yes. In a gender schematic child, that's like if you want to say a normal thinking boy would say, no, I'm a boy. Yes, I am thinking about gender. And then it's called gender aschematic. That's basically somebody that's balanced to whereas they have both masculine and feminine energy to whereas they just see people as who they are. They not see them as a boy or a girl. They just see a person. That's gender aschematic. So that person would say, am I thinking about gender? No. And then the gender aschematic would say, I'm Billy. Whereas the gender schematic boy would say, no, I'm a boy. That's how he identify himself. So then it would say, you ask, do I like this toy? The aschematic boy would be like, yes, and he would play with the dial. And then the gender schematic, the boy that identify himself as a boy, would be like, should I play with dials? No. And he drops the dial and walk on. So depending on the environment, like you're saying, that you grow up in, if you grow up in an environment that's possibly catering to the masculine gender identity of what a boy and what a man's supposed to be, then he's not going to identify with that. But if he's grown up in an environment, or like you said, Deanna grew up in an environment where her mother was that way, so she's seeing that, so she's just more or less gender aschematic. She doesn't see anything wrong with that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
So, and then to go back to the other thing you was talking about as far as how everything is being pushed, that's why I said, and I believe that it's an agenda. Because it goes back to, it's all psychology. It goes back to bombarding people with a whole bunch of just putting so much visualization in your mind, in your subconscious, you start thinking, well, damn, it's okay. Like you said, people start thinking it's the norm. When we was growing up, like you said, no one even thought about that. That was taboo.
Right.
But it's,
Yeah.
in my opinion, it's becoming normalized. It's because we're being saturated with it so much. We're talking about it like we're talking about it. Like I said, it's on TV. Then people are making a big case about it. So everywhere you turn, you hear about it. So it's like you have no choice but to pay attention to it. So again, with that number being as small as it is, it should not be, in my opinion, that hot of a topic. Like we shouldn't be to the point to where is there's laws being put in place.
Right.
Now, if there was a number of, I think it was transgender that was killed in 2022 was 40. Now, nobody should be killed. One is more than enough. Right. But that number compared to the amount of people that die on a daily, again, that's a very small amount. But they're emphasizing it, making it out to like, oh my God, this is such a tragedy that these people are being killed for their sexual orientation, but we still having blacks being killed because of the color of their skin.
Right.
So, and that's more or less by choice, choosing to be, be that way.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, was you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So that's funny you brought that up. And the reason I'm going to bring this up, I'm going to be 400 transparent with everything. So like I said, I date a lot out my race. Mm-hmm. So I come up and bring this point up to a lot of people when we get into it. Like my one friend about the same sex is she tells me that, oh, it's not the same. People accept interracial. I said, it is not. It's more people that may not say anything about it, but they're still not accepted the way that the same sex is. And the reason why I say that is when I go in the gym, I was with one of my clients and we was working out. Not one of my clients, excuse me, somebody I used to date back then. Let me clarify. One of the clients, a friend. And we did date at once upon a time. And we was working out and the looks and disrespect, and you know what they was looking at and what they was mumbling under their mouths and they looking like they was pissed off. Two gay couples come in there and one guy like, oh, that's so nice how they could be together and they working out together. And it was just more accepted than it was the interracial. So I'm not trying to make interracial dating versus same sex, but it's just a point that I'm making is it's more socially acceptable now to be gay than it is even to be dating out your race. So it just amazes me again. I know I'm harping on this, on how anywhere you go, you can speak on that subject. And again, if you say anything negative, it's wrong. I just think society is making it okay to do that. Again, like you said, for a small, minute number, why can't they just go about their business and just be who you are? I get it. Back in the day, it used to be a lot of hate crimes, but I don't know the number on this. But I don't think it's nearly as much hate crime against same sex as people think it is, to where they have to be on commercials, on TV, movies, everything to just say, hey, it's okay to be that way. If it is, do you, but that don't mean you gotta heighten it. And then again, like you said, shove it down people's throats. Now, it's a movie that's coming out. I don't know if it's the first one.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's the one where the two guys, one guy's an athlete, and the other guy's a reporter, and they date each other.
Yeah.
There's one part that tripped me out on the preview is where they joking. I guess they all gay.
Oh, yeah, and in the room.
He said, you remember back in the day when people used to date, it was heterosexual. It's like they were mocking it or making fun of it. To me, that's arrogance. That's trying to say, hey, we taking over. There ain't gonna be no more straight people. So that's where I 100 agree with what you're saying about there's a agenda. Because for them to be saying that's a subliminal message, in my
for sure.
For them to make a movie and they have a comment saying that, oh, remember back when it used to be straight, now you're basically saying that's going to be extinct at some point. So that's where I don't agree with it. At the end of the day, I don't have nothing against anybody. What you do, to each his own, but my thing is the promotion of it is over the top. It's being overzealous at this point. Like, we get it. Let them do what they want to do and just move on. But it's just crazy how that is. Now, remember Dwayne Wade, I think it was last year. And I want to ask people, please comment on this, on his decision. I think it was a good decision when they said him and Gabrielle decided to let him decide on what he wanted. And a lot of people was coming back.
You
He's
said
too
Dwayne
young.
Wade or Dwayne Johnson?
Dwayne Wade, his son
Oh, I
was
thought you said Dwayne Johnson. My bad.
no, Dwayne Wade. I'm sorry, maybe
Yeah.
I did, but Dwayne Wade, how he's pretty much encouraging his son to be that way. So a lot of people like, well, he's too young, he don't know no better. So this is where I would say, if you have a kid at that age where it is going to be kind of, I get where some people are saying you don't want him to just say, well, I forbid you to do that. It's not morally right, because then it's going to probably make him even more go in that direction. So I understand why Dwayne Wade was like, hey, this is his choice. He feels like this is who he is. I'm going to respect him and love him and embrace him. My thing is, I'm on both sides. I get what he's saying, but at the same time, you sit him down, give him a conversation like I did with Deanna. It's more or less, I asked her to see where her mindset is more than telling her you don't need to date women. I said, like we said a minute ago, I asked her, how do you feel you would be in 20 years? Oh, I can't think that far from now. I said, do you feel like you want to be in a relationship, or do you feel like you just like being with women? Because again, to me, it's a difference.
Right.
If you ready to be in a full-blown 100% relationship, then I would say you pretty much, you are gay. But if you just want to play and have fun, to me, that's experiment. It's something, it's a fad. It's something you going through, but it's not something you're ready to commit to. And I don't, again, this is just my opinion. I feel that there's a lot of folks on that fence where they may not want to be gay. They just enjoy that situation of being with the same sex, because it just seems to me it's just a little bit more people converting over. I don't think they really asking themselves, this is a long life decision that I'm really ready to make. And if it is, then it is what it is. But again, that's just my personal opinion. You know, I mean, again, I know it's a small number that you put out there, but just the people that I know that's like that, I ask them all the same thing. And they always say, why you hate? I says, not I'm hating. I'm curious. Educate me. Let me understand, you know, why you doing what you're doing. Not that I feel like you have to, but just so I can understand more why your decision is that way. Because to me, I blame it all on all this society. We in a part in life, really. I get where we should be ourselves. Everybody's saying I'm gonna do me. Respect, you know, I respect that. But to me, you gotta have morals, you gotta have guidelines, you gotta have some kind of morals. I stand on morals. Now, morally, if you feel that's right, so be it. But I just think morally, we at a point in life where anything goes, doesn't matter. Let me be me. And if anybody comment on them, do you a hater, as they say? Or you don't, you know, that to me is crazy. But you know, that we just where we at right now. But I mean, I feel like at some point they do need to calm down, because one friend told me, well, they do the same thing with heterosexual. They promote it on TV and they do all that. So why can't the gay community have it? I said, yeah, but again, it seemed like it's just a little bit more aggressive, like a whole lot more than heterosexual. Because even back in the day, now we starting to go towards where they show more love scenes. But back then, remember growing up, the love scene was kissing. They show them do something and they show them wake up in the morning. Now in these movies, they showing scenes of them actually going through the act. So I think maybe on both sides, heterosexual and gay, they doing that. So I guess that's why they promoting it and saying that, hey, y'all been doing that for years with heterosexuals. So why is it a problem for gays to do it? So that would probably be the defense on that's why they doing it on commercials and movies, because we've been doing it for guys know how long with heterosexual. So I guess that's gonna be the defense on that aspect.
Yeah, so it pretty much goes back to, like I was saying, the First Amendment.
Yeah.
And so just based off of that, like I get it. So I just put up the First Amendment.
Right.
You know, it basically protects the right of freedom of religion and freedom of expression from government interference. So just as you were saying, I get that. So I guess in a sense, like you were saying, okay, so why can't we have freedom to express our joy and us being proud of our partner just as much as you're being proud in expressing who your partner is. So just on that preference alone, I get that. I can respect that because it makes sense based off of that freedom of expression. So I can see why, they would want to push for that and why they actually put it in movies and stuff like that. So I know I probably sound like I'm contradicting myself when I said earlier. Just from that perspective, it makes sense. But what I'm saying is, at the extent that they're doing it, based off the numbers, I don't think it adds up.
Yeah.
So that's why I preface that. Right. So I'm gonna go to this other slide, and I think it has some validity to it. Not that one. So this one is basically the numbers as far as the LGBT community. Adults under 50 living alone with a spouse or partner is 48% of women and 20% of men, or raising a child who is under 18 years of age. And as far as race, ethnic minorities who are LGBTQ are more likely to be raising or having kids. And it's more than a third of same-sex couples raising children are of racial or ethnic minorities. So it's approximately 12% are African American and 15% are Latinos. And so I want to do the income. So as far as individual same-sex couples raising children have lower incomes than different sex counterparts. And the higher levels of poverty, so nearly 1 in 5 children being raised by same-sex couples, which is 24%, live in poverty, compared to 14% of children being raised by different couples. And the education, all research shows that individuals in same-sex couples have higher levels of education. However, this is not true for raising the children. Only 1/3 of same-sex couples raising children have college degrees. So I don't know if that makes a difference to you or that means anything to anybody out there that's watching. I believe that it is significant, especially the part about the ones that's living in poverty. So it's only a certain demographic that are engaging in these activities.
Right.
So, and when they, in my opinion, when it's more so being advertised as far as the LGBT community, in my opinion, I may be wrong, it's mainly African American men or African American females. But the numbers I just showed you is clearly more Hispanics than it is African American. But for whatever reason, you see more advertised. And I'm not saying what you see out in public or anywhere else.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a big difference. But when we get into it on part 2, the goal is to have someone from that community, be a guest on the show. So we're not just, putting out our opinions and stuff and just sounding totally ignorant. So that way we can have somebody actually from that community that can defend their community. And like you said, educate us. If it's something that we're not getting or something we're not receiving, maybe they can educate us on it. And the same thing for those that's viewing. That's why it's important to have and leave comments. It's not just to make us feel good or to gas our heads up. The intent for this is to open dialogue. People put out different perspectives. That's how we learn. It's hearing other people's perspectives on things so that way we can all get, educate each other and learn from each other. So that's why it's important to leave the comments. Like I said, I don't care if it's a 2-word, 3 words, 4 words, an emoji, just something. I'm a learner. I love to learn, and I don't want to be total ignorant out here as I grow older. So I'm going to close with that. And like I said, there's definitely a part 2 coming. We're going to get more into the numbers, and we're going to get more into the transgender side of the LGBT community. And as I said, the goal is to have a guest from that community. So as I always say, a thought becomes a belief, and a belief becomes a manifestation.
Sir, and my saying, STS, guys. I use that in the fitness world, but it's an everyday life situation. Whatever we're trying to do out there in life, STS, which means stay focused, trust your process, and most of all, stay consistent. So guys, have a great day. We see you guys next week.
Peace.
They wonders of the world, they monsters, the twin Tompkins, brought out only born, they travel the world stopping at the break of dawn daily. The iron's pumping, I bring no brothers, about to bring you their life. Look no further, everybody, cause it's day and night. Let's go!